What's up guys, it's Calrus. I hope everybody's enjoying Classic as much as I am. Today I'm gonna give you guys some great tips for mastering your Mage in Classic WoW. In the interest of keeping this short and easy to digest, let's jump right in, shall we? My first tip is something that I briefly discussed in my Mage AoE grinding guide, and that is what's commonly referred to as leeway. In short, leeway is a result of the game's code, where characters or entities gain an extra 2-yard range on all of their attacks and abilities, including melee swings whilst moving. The reason that this matters is that it can be greatly taken advantage of with instant casts like Cone of Cold, Fire Blast, Frost Nova, and Arcane Explosion. Even if someone is super far away, leeway can actually aid you in landing important slows or freezes. Therefore, it's important that you make a habit of never really standing still when casting Cone of Cold or Frost Nova. What's interesting though is that leeway works both ways. So if both units are moving at the same time, you both are essentially adding 4 yards to your max range on attacks and abilities. Meaning that you can very easily get blinded by a rogue, even if he is super far away and the range is only 10 yards by default. Essentially, in this case, leeway provides a 40% range increase. And as you know, if a rogue is allowed to blind and get a full reset, you're done for, with no way of countering. What's even more interesting though is that backpedaling, in other words moving backwards with the S key, doesn't trigger leeway, so there are actually situations where you want to do this, even if it's slow and you look like an idiot for doing so. Whenever I'm doing huge AoE pulls when I'm farming gold on my 60 mage, I actually Nova all the targets together and backpedal for a few seconds as I freeze, to avoid as many melee hits as possible. I then of course proceed to make distance and blizzard like I normally would, but for the first few seconds after my Nova I will generally opt to backpedal for a bit, even if I cringe to my stomach whilst doing so. As a final note on leeway, jumping seems to trigger it as well. So if I'm grinding caster mobs and therefore aren't able to blizzard, I will generally jump as Arcane Explosion to give myself an additional 20% range. Alright, moving on, we have my next tip. My next tip is going to be learning to abuse Blink. Not only can this ability be used to avoid falling damage, it can be used to break stuns as well as creating distance on chasing melee players in PvP. However, most importantly it can also be used as a tool to juke players in PvP. Rather than explaining what I mean by this, you can have a look at this clip. You can do some pretty nutty stuff with Blink in Classic WoW, so learn to abuse it. My next tip is a short and simple one, and this is something I completely discovered by accident, and one that I haven't seen talked about elsewhere. Due to how interrupts are coded in Classic, you can actually remove interrupts with Cold Snap. I think the main reason for this is because spells like Earth Shock, Counterspell, etc. don't actually lock you out of casting. Instead, it seems to put an internal cooldown on all of your abilities. I've found this incredibly useful in both PvP and PvE, so I hope you'll find this helpful too. My next tip is going to be utilizing your rank 1 spells. Primarily Frostbolt and Fireball, but also Fire Blast and Arcane Explosion. Fire Blast to kill totems and the likes, hopefully with a mouse over macro as well. And of course Arcane Explosion to break rogues out of stealth and still conserve mana. Rank 1 Fireball is used to keep rogues and druids out of stealth by applying and maintaining the dot, and rank 1 Frostbolt should be used as a slow on any melee class in PvP. Most of the time you'll want to kite with rank 1 Frostbolt, whilst of course getting in safe damage through Scorch and Fire Blast. Alright, my final tip is a short and simple one. I could keep listing things for days, about talents, racials, stats, consumables, spells, and more, but we have to end it somewhere. If you're interested in more tips like these, please let me know. Anyway, counterspell isn't only an interrupt. It's also the instant cast in your spellbook with the furthest range, meaning that it should be used against melee as well. Primarily to prevent a rogue from leaving combat and resetting, but also against other classes that would benefit from grabbing a snack of their conjured food that they probably begged for in Orgrimmar. Seriously, stop asking me for food, I'm not a vending machine. Alright guys, that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm still kind of finding my niche as a content creator, but I'd love to hear from you guys what type of videos you guys want to see next. I'd love to do some less structured videos, perhaps revolving around lore or even machinima style videos. I don't know, I'm rambling at this point. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and peace.